So at the end of meetup, we will have a trivia quiz where we will select three winner and they will get a training voucher, like So there are some some condition, like if anybody has like opt for the voucher in last 1 month. So okay, so I will suggest don't go for the new voucher, because like give a chance to others also. Second thing, like if anybody is like new to MuleSoft, like having less experience, like less than 6 months experience, or and like they are just took the training in the MuleSoft, don't go for MCI and MCPA certifications. Okay, so like MuleSoft will not accept those certification and they will not accept those requests basically. So please avoid selecting those MCI and MCPA certifications. Okay. So introduction, like Parmeshwari will discuss on cache scope and caching strategy. Then I will be going to give a demo on Jenkins multi-branch pipeline, basically how we can enable a Jenkins multi-branch pipeline for your MuleSoft application using a single Jenkins file. Then we will have a quiz at the end, basically. Yeah. So I will ask Parmeshwari to start the session, basically. So I will unshare my screen and you can share your screen, Parmeshwari.
Yeah, sure. Let me know if you can see my screen.
We can see it. We can start. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Jitendra. So let's start. Okay. So today I'm with cache scope and caching strategy. So before we start with new specific cache scope or caching strategy, let's caching in a simple terms. So here in this diagram, if you see, there's something called cache. Cache is nothing but a temporary memory where we can store some data and retrieve data from that memory. So what is caching? Caching act of storing and reusing data from memory so that future requests for that data can be served faster. So how it works? Whenever a new request comes from a client application, first it goes and checks in the cache whether that key already exists, the data already exists in the cache. If it doesn't exist, then it goes to the database and retrieves that data, and it saves that data in the cache and returns the response to the application. So whenever the next request comes, it again goes to the cache and checks for the already existing data. If the data is existing, it sends the response from the cache itself. It doesn't even go to the database. Thus, it saves time, and the response to the client application is served faster. So, uh, so this is about caching. So by implementing this caching, what are we achieving? So what are the benefits of implementing this caching? So first thing is, like I said, response time is reduced to a great extent, since we are not doing the round trip every time. We are not going back to the backend database and retrieve the actual data from database. So we are saving the response time. We are bringing down the response time so that and increasing the performance of the client application, overall performance of this application. And second, we are reducing the overload on the database. Since we are redirecting the request from the client application to cache memory rather than sending all the requests to database, uh, we are reducing the overload on the database. Sometimes this also prevents the crashes that happens on the database because of spikes. So, so this is the second advantage that benefit we will be benefiting by implementing this caching. And third advantage, we can say, like, we are reducing the network costs, since the network path is reduced by half. Like, not all requests goes to the backend system. we are reducing the network cost, and so these are the advantages uh, that we can get by implementing the caching. So now that we have a lot of advantages, can we do caching for all the GET requests, or answer is no, because if we do this caching for all the requests, for example, if there is a data that has a frequent that is frequently changing, if we implement this caching, what happens? Sometimes we will be sending a stale data or old data to the client application. So we should always avoid doing implementing this caching for the frequently changed data. For what kind of data we can implement these caching? The data should be the static data which changes, or data that changes at a regular interval. For example, lookup data, or data that gets from a batch jobs which runs on a daily, or the access tokens which has a specific time which expires over a specific time. So these kind of data we can usually store in cache and retrieve from that cache so that it can be accessed fast. So this is about caching. And next, so so now we saw what kind of a data can be cached. So how this cache, we can implement the caching effectively. So these can be implemented for tasks like processing repeated requests for the same information, or processing requests for information that involves large repeatable streams. So, for example, if we implement caching for an API that is requested only once in a month or twice in a month, it makes no sense. We are just wasting the resource, right? So there should be a frequent request for the same information. For example, if we are receiving a request, every time we are receiving a unique request, then all the data will be saved in the cache and we will not be using it anytime. So whenever we implement caching, there should be a frequent repeated request for the same information. Only then it will be more effective and we can benefit, or whatever the benefits we discussed, we will be getting all those advantages. And processing requests for the information that involve large repeatable streams. So caching is mostly implemented for the repeatable streams. We should not use a non-repeatable streams, because if we implement cache scope for non-repeatable streams, once cache scope consumes that stream of data, will not get any data for further processing for the other processes. So we should avoid. And since it's a large data, it is saved in the cache, can be retrieved faster than going to the backend and retrieving from the backend system. And okay, in Mule, we can implement this caching in two ways. One is using the HTTP caching policy in API Manager. So we can go to API Manager, search for the API for which we want to implement this, and go to the policy, and in the drop down we have an option to select the HTTP caching. Once we enter all the properties, we can implement this. And the other option is to use the cache scope in API code. So that we will discuss today later, how we can implement, and when to use HTTP caching policy or when to use cache scope. Whenever you want to save the entire response of an API, then we can go for HTTP caching. Whenever you want to just cache the data that is coming from a backend system, in that case, we can go for cache scope. So let's see what is cache scope and caching strategy specific to Mule. So cache scope is for storing and reusing frequently called data. You can use a cache scope to reduce the processing load on Mule instance and to increase the speed of message processing within a flow. So like I said before, cache scope caches only repeatable streams. It does not cache non-repeatable streams, which can be read only once before they are lost. So caching strategy. So what does caching strategy means? It defines how the cache scope should behave based on whatever the parameters we enter for caching strategy. We can configure cache size, expiration time, and maximum allowed entries by setting these values in the object store uh, that we define or reference from a caching strategy. So we can enter all these values. Based on that, our cache scope will behave based on the parameters that we set. So this is about cache scope and caching strategy. It's a very simple topic and very effective. If we implement it in a proper way, we can achieve a better performance for our API. So let's see, I'll show a simple demo how we can implement this. So let me create a new project.
Any question? Like, do you have any questions, anybody? Parmeshwar, there is one question. How to use caching for the application deployed in on-premise cluster?
On-premise clusters, yeah, I'll come to that when I'm explaining the parameters. Is that okay? Yeah.
It's okay. Is it possible to use caching scope across all the instance of application, like Mule
Yes.
app? And Mule app is running in on-premise with 3 cluster.
Yes, in cluster, data is shared, so definitely we
Correct.
can, data is shared, so if we use the object store, we can definitely implement it. And at different environment, it all depends on how you configure your object store. Like in Cloud Hub, if you go for a persistent, then the data can be shared. If you go for a transient, then data cannot be shared across the instances. And if it is a RTF or a standalone, then definitely we cannot share. And if it's a cluster, whichever option you go for, whether it is JDBC or in memory, data is definitely shared. So
Correct.
it all depends. Yeah, it all depends on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead. Like just I'm saying okay. Yeah.
Okay, so depending on whichever the deployment model you choose and whichever the caching strategy you define, based on that data can be shared or it will not be able to share the data. So it depends on how we configure it.
Yeah. So generally on RTF, like every instance will have its own own caching, caching, right? Or because like RTF doesn't support the persistent object store. But for cluster, if you are selecting as a persistent object store, then the cache memory can be shared across the multiple servers in the cluster, right?
Sorry if I was too fast.
Yeah,
So I
Prasad,
have,
are you got the answer? Okay, so there's one question more, Parmeshwar. When on-premise is there for deploying the application, okay. So what you suggest, object store or caching?
no, actually in cache, we have an option. We can go for either default or object store. If you go for default, the data is stored in memory. So if you go for object store, you have an option. You can save it in the share. Like if you go for a share, if you want to share data across applications, across workers, like you go for a horizontal scaling, only then you can go for object store. Otherwise, you can just use a default, right?
Correct. There's one more question. How much data we can store in cache?
Okay, so object store now with OSV2, we don't have any limits. Like we can store how many ever keys we want. And I think the size of the data, we have some limit. It's around 10 MB per key.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's one more question. Can we refresh the data cache after some defined period automatically? We can do that by using the schedulers, right? We can use the scheduler and we can refresh that cache every time. That is possible, Raji. You can create a batch job which can like update the cache every 10 minutes, 20 minutes, right?
Yeah. So whenever you like, you can invalidate the key. So that also we will see how we can do it. If there is any update to the data, and you can invalidate that, so that whenever a new request comes, it gets updated in the next request.
Gundeep, for how much time data is kept stored? Gundeep, you can define that expiration period while
Yeah.
configuring the cache.
If it is default, then it is 30 days. If you
Yeah.
are going for custom, then you can give any day, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 10 days, like whatever, based on your requirement, you can define.
Yeah. You can go ahead with your demo. Yeah, Parmeshwari.
Okay, so I have just configure the database. So I have I'm using the common uh, the MuleSoft database, which we have used during the training time, the same database. Since it is just a get call, I'm trying to use that to retrieve some records, so that we can see how much time it takes to retrieve from a database when we don't implement cache scope, and when we implement cache scope, we can see the difference. So I'm trying to do it from the database. Let's see. We configure the database first.
Parmeshwari, it's, I think tooling is stopped. Yeah, okay. Tooling instance is stopped. That's fine. Like you can just configure it. It will work. You can start
Okay.
the application. It will work.
Okay. Let me try this. Okay. So in this example, I am querying a database, a table contacts, and it has some contacts of employees from a different company. So I am sending some query parameters. So I will save that query. I've already saved the database just to save the time. So I'll use the explain what I'm doing. It's just I'm just extracting the query parameter, whatever I'm passing. So I'll be passing the query parameter company from Postman. So that will be retrieved and saved it in the company variable. And then I'm just constructing the select query. If I'm not sending any value, it is taking or I'm sending all. It is just adding this where condition. Otherwise, it just gets the actual select star from the contacts. Let me add this variable here. I rename this to a variable. Okay. Okay, so it took around 2000 milliseconds, like 1958 milliseconds. So even if I try this request multiple times, it doesn't, it still take more than 1000 milliseconds. And I will also do it with some key parameters. So it is returning all the employee names with their email and company. So I'm passing some value to it. So for even if I try multiple times, the response time still in the same range around 1500 milliseconds. Now let's see what happens when we implement the cache scope. I'm implementing here. I'll put the database inside. I'll add a logger to see if it goes inside or not. So if a control goes inside, then it's called cache miss. If it doesn't go inside, then it's cache hit. So I just log it as cache hit. So let's see. Okay, so here, like I mentioned before, if you go for default caching strategy, so the time to leave will be 30 days and it will be a persistent type. And this doesn't use any object store, and it will be stored in memory, and it cannot be shared. So if you want it to be shared, then you have to go for object store. So here you can define, you can either create a new object store in the global and reference.
You can go to global element. Yeah, yeah, got it.
Yes, that's what I tried, but I'm not able to see. Oh, okay, here it's good. Okay. Okay, so here you can give a name for your object store. I just since we are saving the context interested in the name, you can give the maximum entries that you can store and entry time to leave and giving just 5 minutes just for the testing now. And giving all the other details as default and here key expression. So if you're not mentioning any key, MuleSoft will generate a unique key with SHA-256 key generator and a SHA-256 digest. It will use that to generate a new key to save the payload. But here I will use a custom key. So I will use the company, whatever the query parameter I pass, I will use that to save the key. So now we can reference this. And here. Okay, open this thing, so it should have saved all the things over. Let's see. Okay, so first time it took 2.17 seconds. So second time, if I do, it took just 19 milliseconds. So it keeps response time as reduced drastically. So let me all 50 seconds to get me all this data from database. If I request the same data again, it just took 33 milliseconds. So that's how we can make our API perform better by reducing the response time drastically for the frequently queried requests. And okay, so if there is any changes done in the database, for example, here I cannot do this update, but in a real time example, if there is any change to this contact, since we have cached this contact, if I want to get my employee details for a particular company and I send it, and backend some data has changed and it's not updating the cache. So in that case, what we usually do is we have to invalidate those keys. So whenever there is a request to update these entries, we should call the invalidate, we should use the invalidate key to invalidate it, and so that whenever the further request comes, it again adds that key to the cache memory. So to do the invalidate key, I will add one more listener and that endpoint. So here you can give the same caching strategy which takes the same values.
Yeah, any question from anyone?
So we are passing this parameter. I will extract that here again.
Parvesh, there is one question. What is the default caching behavior?
What is default caching?
Behavior.
So yeah, default caching, if you go, then it will be 30 days. So you cannot define your own time to leave. So it will always take 30 days, and you can't go for transient. It will be always persistent, and it will be in memory. So you can't go for a shared one.
Okay, the other question is what happens when too many requests and the limit for cache is exceeded before TTL expire. So it like he suppose he is trying to say like we put 100 requests, okay, and like maximum request entry equals to 100, right? In that case, if we are getting 101 requests, right? So it will not. So in that case, it will not going to store anything in the cache for that 101. It will try and hit the database, right?
Yeah, it will be like a new request.
Okay.
Yeah, this one you are talking about, right? Maximum entry. So we have to set the expiration interval as well. For that time, how many maximum entries it can allow. So if it goes beyond that, like you can't access the cache memory. So it will be a new request, which will again go back to the database.
Oh, and like where the cache data is stored.
It is stored like depending on whether you select in memory or uh, persistent. If it is persistent, it is in the Amazon DynamoDB. If it is transient, it will be in the workers in memory.
Yeah, that
Workers
is
memory.
for cloud basically, right? So I think
Mhm.
for on premise it will get stored on the data grid, like cluster data grid,
Yeah,
or on,
yeah,
right?
JDBC.
Or JDBC, depend like
Yes,
what we have done
yes,
for the persistent data store. Yeah,
yes. That's
yeah. So can you explain like what you are trying to do now?
okay. So I'm going to extract the query parameter company, and then I'm trying to invalidate this key. For example, if there is a new data updated for this, a request has come to update this first name or email ID for this person who's working in this company. So whenever a new post request comes, we need to invalidate the key, right? Otherwise, the old data will be sent to the get request. Whenever the further request comes for this listener, will be sending the old data. So we need to invalidate this key. So I'm trying to show how we can invalidate this key. First, we will set it as variable. So here we have already set the key as company. So we'll put here.
So
And this will
Jitendra Anuranjan here. So one question here in case, so what we have done here is that we have taken single key on which we are doing the caching. In case there are multiple in my request have multiple keys.
Yeah.
So in that cases, what is your suggestion with respect to
Okay.
this caching cost actually?
Yeah, I will tell you generally what I have done. I have come across this scenario once basically in past. So basically, what is happening? Like I want to see sometime what happened. My invoice number is same. Parvesh, can you please go on mute so I can just tell them like what is the. So basically, my invoice number is always same, but my date I concatenate both invoice number and the date, okay, and that is I am forming that invoice number plus date as my key, and I'm saving the data against it. So that is how you can do, Niranjan. Hello.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can concatenate those strings, right? You sometimes like you can store only one key, right? You cannot store on multiple parameters, right? You cannot like it's not
Exactly.
type of database where you can search on the basis of multiple filter criteria. Here, what the best approach will be, you concatenate the multiple fields into a single key and search on the basis of that particular concatenation what you have applied basically.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, Parmeshwari, you can on your mic now. Yeah.
So I have invalidate this key. Now whenever the new request comes, it will take the new data. So here for the demo I couldn't update anything since this database is from the sample demo that we got from MuleSoft, right, for training purpose. So I cannot make any changes to this, so I could not show that, but I just showed how we can invalidate this. So by passing that variable here, we can, this key gets invalidated, which means it is removed from that cache. So whenever a new request comes, again it goes here and checks if the data is there or not, and then if it is not there, it will go to the DB, retrieve and save here for the next request. So let's see how it works here. So now, so again, it is taking 2 seconds to retrieve the data, and second time when I try, it takes only 15 milliseconds because now the data is in cache, and I'm trying to invalidate this. And next time when I try, it again goes to the database. So it's taking again milliseconds. Sorry, thousand.
Parmeshwari, there is one question. So now we have select the object store as a persistent. So where the data is actually stored, it must create some file on the disk, right?
Yeah, it will create a file in the disk. If it is studio, it will be inside the this projects folder. There will be a object store folder where you can find the data. Whereas if it is in Cloud Hub, then it will be in the Amazon Dynamo.
Do you know the directory, exact directory where it is stored?
Uh, I,
Can you show on the source name resources basically? I think.
I I need to check. I can give the path exactly. Mm, hold on. 1 second. I will just stop sharing and I will show the data.
So Rajiv, I will give you answer how see basically like when any updation is happening for the particular key basically or for any particular like updation happening in the database or modification or happening in the database, right? So you need to ensure that you are invalidate also like you invalidate that key. So basically invalid nothing, it just remove the data from the cache. That's it. So that you need to define the process. If any modification is happening or if any deletion is happening, or like anything, any updation happening on your data on particular row or particular database, you need to invalidate all those keys. It's not about like how frequently, and even like you can set up the scheduler also. What I will do, so generally you can have some scheduler and you can check that if anything is updated in last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can invalidate those cases. So this is also approach you can implement basically. Yeah, Prasad, like I think Kamlakar has give the path for that object store, okay, where it gets stored. Yeah, yeah, you can go ahead like Parmeshwari with other demo. Hello, hello, can you hear me? Hello, hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Jitendra.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jitendra, we can hear
we
Yes.
you.
lost. Yeah, we
But we
lost
lost
Parmeshwari.
Yeah.
Hello, Parmeshwari, can you hear us? Let me. Like let she's joining back.
Can you hear me now?
Hello. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. My network was.
Yes, we can hear you.
You can share your screen again.
Yeah. Let me share this. So here inside, um,
There's a one more question like how we
Mhm.
can do the exception handling for this caching strategy for caching scope.
Sorry, what is that?
Yeah, let me
Exception.
yeah, exception handling. How we can enable, how we can manage the exception handling around the cache in case there is a DB connection issue.
I think it will handle the same way. I mean, in cache, uh, I have now come across like issues.
I
Yeah,
I think it's a simple, right? It will be simple basically. Like if DB connection is not there, if data is present in the cache, it will pick the data from the cache. It will not going to connect database, right?
yes,
In case if data doesn't found in cache, it will go and connect with the database. If there's a connection failure, it will throw the error back to the customer, right? To the client basically.
yes. Yes, the same way, like when cache is not there, how it works the same way. But if the data is in cache, so it doesn't even go to the database to check its connectivity, right? It just returns whatever is there in the cache. So this is also one advantage of using cache. So whenever there is an interruption or the backend system is not available for a short period of time, we still access the data from cache.
Okay, yeah. You can go ahead with your last third demo.
I think that's all from my end actually. So the cache scope I showed and caching strategy and invalidating the key. So I just wanted to show like where that object store will be there. So this, if this is a project, it will be there is a object store folder created. So inside you can see all the data created. Somebody asked this question, right? Where
Yeah.
it will be saved. So here we can see all the objects to data stored, saved. I think I'm done from my end. Any other
Yeah.
questions?
Guy, any question on like casting before like we start with other other topic?
Yeah, Tarun has asked some question. Can we use a scheduler to refresh the cache instead of invalidating? Yeah, we can do so whenever again a new request comes. If it is an unless the expiration time, the time to leave whatever we have defined, if it does not reach, I don't think it will save new entries. So if you want to break that time interval, even before the time interval expires, you want to invalidate the key, then you have to use this. If you have set the expiration time like one day and you want to schedule it the next day morning, then in that case it will update all the cache or whatever with the fresh data.
Okay. So
Hey,
when to go
Parmesh.
for cache?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Hey,
Prasad is
Parmesh.
asking. Yeah, 1 minute. Prasad is asking one question: when to go for cache over the object store apart from performance? Any other advantage? Hello.
Okay, the cache uses object store to store data. Like if you go for default, it doesn't use object store. If you object store, then if you want if you want your cache data to be shared across multiple instances or workers, then you go for object store. If it is persistent, we know like it definitely affects the performance. If it is default, it works faster since the data is stored in memory.
Okay. Somebody asking some question, right?
Hey, Parmeshwari, Ashish here.
Mhm.
So we were discussing, right? If we are going with, so see, object store is basically application specific, right? So in same application, if you are creating multiple instance, yeah, definitely will get a performance improvement. But instead that, can we use a third party caching system where we can put our cache outside of your application, and then we can use in multiple projects also, right? That is possible, right?
Yes, we can do that also. I think that option is there.
Yeah,
Like we can add
yeah.
some external as well.
Yeah, so right now object store is application specific, means it will be shared within your application instance only. I
Yeah.
want to, yeah, I have a database, I want to share between the projects. In that case, I can share, I can put this object store in external cache system. Like, yeah, if you go to the configuration, there is option edit line, and then third one is the reference, right? That I think we can use to share among, even on Cloud Hub also, we can share multiple, projects if you are using external system.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashish, for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So any other question? Parmeshwar, there is a one question. If we configure cache in one application which is deployed in the RTF AWS server, once we have restarted, data will present. Kamlakar, like RTF doesn't provide the persistent store basically. Okay, it's a non-persistent because it's by architecture it doesn't provide the persistent store RTF. Okay, so definitely if application get restarted, if application move from one worker to another worker, or if application got crash and it automatically gets started, your data will lose. Okay. So that you have to consider while designing your application runtime fabric. Okay.
I think
So
answer
is
to
the
that answer to the Kamlakar's question is this one, external system. Okay, so if
yeah,
you keep your
external, yeah. But you have to also make sure if you are connecting with the external system, there are various disadvantages also. Okay,
yes,
you have to open the firewall. There's a network connect. There can be network connectivity issue. There can be other thing. Object store and cache that will be within your environment only. You have to do. You don't have to go the outside. You don't have to consider securities, all those things, right? So better yeah. There are some disadvantages, but at the same time we are getting many advantages also. But if you are going with external or external kind of object store or external kind of caching, you have to take care of many other things like network connectivity, firewalls, securities, all those things, right? You have to ensure that there will be at least more 99.99% SLA for connecting those like external object stores or all those things. So make sure you design the you have to take a lot of parameter into consideration when you are using the external object store or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Which layer is good fit for caching? Haven't got this question. Have you got this question, Parmeshwar? Which layer is the good for caching?
System layer.
Yeah, system layer, or you can do it in the proc layer as well, depending on at what stage you want to do. If you want to do it after transformation, you can do it in the proc layer, or you just want to you would just want to return whatever the data is coming from the backend system, then you can do it in the system layer.
See, simple, like if your data is static, right? So like when I will go for cache, if you have some images or some data, backend data is static, right? That is not changing that too frequently and that is not too dynamic basically, right? In that case, you can use the caching. If your data is changing frequently and it's changing dynamically, right? You cannot use the caching. The caching is already out of scope in such scenarios, right? Yeah. If we use HTTP caching, yeah, you can use. See, depend like there's no hard and fast rule like you have to use the caching at a system layer only. Sometimes if your system layer is returning the static data every time, you can use the caching at the experience layer directly. Like instead of calling system API again and again, you can directly use there, right? So yeah, there are many ways like you can do that.
But HTTP caching is is for edge security only, right? As edge level only you can try. So I think in RTF only supported that, right?
Yeah, no, HTTP caching policy is available in HTTP API Manager also. I don't think Kamlakar, but Kamlakar, I will give you a demo. Don't worry about that. So I can like after this, we can have a demo on that. Right now we haven't prepared the demo, but we will ensure that you get some demo on that. Okay. Prasad, like Parmeshwari, do we have a demo on HTTP caching right now? No, right?
Then we just concentrated on cache scope and caching strategy.
Prasad, what we will do, we will create a small video and we can send it to you over the mail to all the people, to all the participants. Is this okay, Prasad? Yeah. Okay. So how can we use the distributed share cache data in other flow or application? it's already answered, right? We have to use the external caching mechanism. So that is the answer already Ashish gave it, right? Yeah. So let me share my screen quickly and Buddha, you can do that, right? You can definitely like if you want. See, I will tell you, if you want, like your cache must be shared by across the multiple application in Cloud Hub or in on-premise. You can use that Redis caching also. Okay, at the experience layer. See, I will tell you, like layer doesn't matter. Like it depends, like what is your requirement, like. So I cannot say like at which layer you have to use caching. Like most of the time we use the caching at the system layer. Okay, but in some cases if you want to like cache some like static data or something like that, so you can use at a experience layer also. See, watermark and cache scope is both a different concept. Basically, watermark is used for storing your like some date and time, like so you can retrieve the data after that date, those kind of watermark. But caching is just it's storing the key value pair basically. Okay, Parmesh, there is one question. Okay, is cache value in base 64 format to save up space? Can we see that value?
Open this and see if we can see that. I don't think we can see it. It converts into. Yeah, we can't see that value.
Can you show, let's share and screen and show to Dheeraj?
Yeah.
So it's just asking, like so
Yeah, actually, it converts into a different code, so we can't read it actually. Yeah, my system is taking
yeah.
time.
So Dheeraj, it get converted into base 64 and we cannot read that. Okay, that system can automatically read those values. Okay, okay. So that's fine. Like I can share my screen and I can. Okay. I can quickly share my screen and I can start with, we have a less time. So if anybody have any question, they can email us. Definitely answer all the questions. Okay. So can you see my screen? Hello?
Yes, yes, we can see.
Yes, Jitendra.
So guys, what is a multi-branch pipeline or Jenkins multi-branch pipeline? Anybody heard about that? Like anybody implemented a Jenkins multi-branch pipeline? No question, right? Nobody, right? So what is DevOps? Let me present it. So like DevOps is nothing like it enables a collaboration between a development and the IT operation team. So you can deploy a core faster and in much better way and repeatable way basically. Okay. So DevOps bring a development and the operation team together. So they can, they can do the release much faster basically. Okay. And in the automated way. So what are the benefits we are getting from the DevOps? So basically your release and the deployment can be done more frequently and more faster. Okay, and like you can do even small releases also. And also one of the advantage of DevOps, like you can catch the error at the initial stage. Like what happened during the continuous integration and the continuous deployment. Whenever you are like writing the code, you checking those code into your code repository. As soon as you check in the code, you will have a pipeline. That pipeline will start building the code, and it will, in case if there's any failure, that particular pipeline can email you there was failure while building the code. So you can you can get the error at the initial stage. You can come to know your code have some bugs at the initial stage. Okay, that's why I'm saying the shorter mean time to repair. So you can, like, as soon as you got the email is triggered to you, you can simply go and check the code, what mistake you have done. Okay, you can simply repair the code before it get deployed to production or test or development server. It also reduce the cost and fault isolations. Basically, these are the some benefits we are getting from the DevOps. Okay, what is a CI/CD? What is continuous integration, continuous deployment, and the continuous delivery? Basically, anybody aware of that? So can you tell me, like, what is the life cycle of continuous integration? Anybody?
I think this comes into picture when we are working with the multiple developers, right? So multiple developers will be working on different features of same application. Then they are checking their code parallelly. So there will be chance of merging conflicts and all that. That will be taken care by continuous integration, where right it will automatically build up, and then as you said, right, if there are any issues, it will be automatically taken care, and that build will fail. That build pipeline will send the email to that particular developer that your build is breaking the code. So I think the
Yes.
continuous integration comes that part.
Yeah, so this is correct. Okay, so basically continuous integration is nothing. You check in your code. So as soon as you check in the code, your pipeline will start building the code and perform the unit testing on the top of that code. Okay, automated unit testing. That is a continuous integration. So like in today's modern world, in modern technology, what happens? So generally every day a developer is checking the code into the code repository. As soon as the developer checking the code into the code repository, the pipeline triggers automatically and it start building the code. And it start building the code and it start performing the unit testing. If you have enabled the unit testing, if you have not written the unit testing, it will not do. So in case if you have written the unit testing, it will do. It will perform the code review. It will do whatever whatever steps or whatever stages you have defined in your pipeline. It will perform all those stages. Okay. In case if there is any issue, if there is any problem while building or while performing the unit testing, while performing the code review, it will trigger the email to that particular developer who have checking the code. Okay, so that is known as a continuous integration. Continuous integration means like you are keep on checking your code and your pipeline is keep building the code, performing the unit testing, like those kind of steps done in the continuous integration. Continuous deployment or continuous delivery means, so whatever changes you have done, that changes has to be moved to the one environment, from lower environment to the higher environment. So that is the continuous deployment. So you can move your code faster to development server, from development to QA server, from QA server to the production server. So that is a continuous deployment. So that is also, sometimes people do the deployment automated till the production. Somebody stop the deployment till automated deployment till test, like that. It depends like what is the requirement. So what are the benefits of CI/CD? You get quicker releases, your smaller code changes. So basically smaller code changes, as I mentioned, in one day you cannot write too much of the code, right? You can write at least some 3 or 4 functions, right? And you, as soon as you written the 3-4 functions, you check in the code, it will quickly compile your code and it will build your code, and you will come to know whether your code has some bug or whether your code has has been built successfully. Those kind of information you get very quickly. Fast mean time to resolution. As I mentioned, as soon as anything go wrong with your code, you get the email, you can quickly change your code depending on what error you are getting, and again you check in the code, it will build the code. It improved the testability and it improved the customer satisfaction. So this is, let me make it a bit smaller. So what is Jenkins? So Jenkins is nothing. It's an open source continuous integration and a deployment tool. Basically, it allow you to enable a CI/CD for your application. Right? It support almost all the languages. It have a complete support for Maven. Basically, a Jenkins is completely free. And it entirely written in the Java. And basically, Jenkins is the one of the mostly, it have around 300K installation basically all over the world, for doing the continuous integration and the continuous deployment. So generally these are the few stages defined in the continuous integration and the continuous deployment. It always start, it check out the code, it perform the build, it do the unit testing, it perform the code review, then copy the binaries to Nexus repository, deploy the code to the cloud up on develop. In case there's any error during the deployment, it generate a notification. So this is a typical pipeline. There might be some changes, depend on the requirement and business requirement depend. So there might be some additional steps. There might be some few steps maybe remove in your code review basically, in your CI/CD pipeline. So what is Mule Maven plugin? Anybody is aware of Mule Maven? I think everybody should know the Mule Maven plugin. Let me check. What is Mule Maven plugin? Ashish?
So in this Mule Maven plugin will give a flexibility to configure your automation script here. So basically, we write on which environment I wanted to deploy and all stuff in the form.xml.
Yeah. So let me explain in bit deep. So I will tell you. So it's one of the very important plugin. Okay. So basically, Mule Maven plugin is basically used to deploy your application to the on-premise, to cloud up, to cluster, to server group, or to any point runtime fabric manager, or also on the private cloud edition. So basically, Mule Maven plugin you can define in your form.xml, okay, and it enables you to deploy your application into your on-premise, cloud up, cluster, runtime fabric manager, whatever, like wherever you are doing the Mule installation. So it provide all this. So this is the typical plugin looks like. Plugin basically org.muletools.maven, and this is the Mule Maven plugin. So latest version is 3.4.2. Okay, so this is like, if you are right now, if you are creating the application, by default you will get this plugin as 3.3.5. The latest is 3.4.2. It's very simple for deploying the application. You just have to use the command mvn clean package. Even you don't have to use the clean package. You can simply use mvn deploy -d mule deploy. For undeploying the application, you can use mule mvn mule undeploy. These are the simple commands you need to use for deploying your application to the cloud hub, cluster, anypoint fabric. Now your question must be like, how the plugin will come to know where I have to deploy the application. Here I am just firing the command. I will tell you. Okay. So now here we will take the example of the cloud hub basically. So now I want to deploy my application into any point cloud hub. So there are few parameters we need to configure URI. So generally I don't configure this parameter. It's not compulsory. Like, by default the value is https anypoint.mulesoft.com. But if you want to deploy your application into the Europe region, right, you have to give the URI. By default, if you want to deploy in US region, that URI is fine basically. If you want to deploy your application in the Europe region, you have to prefix with eu1.anypoint.mulesoft.com, and you have to define this URI parameter into your Mule Maven plugin. Then you have to define a Mule version. Then you have to give the application name. Then you have to give the username, password. If you don't want to store your username, the password in the form.xml, instead of that, you can use the server. I will tell you how we can use that. Then you use the workers, how many workers you want. By default, it's one. Worker type, it's micro. Then you have to define the environment where you want to deploy application. If you want to deploy the application into the business, within some business group, you can give the business group. You can also pass the region, basically, in which region you have to deploy your application. So there are various regions: US East 1, US East 2, US West 1. So there are many regions. The business group is not a compulsory parameter, it's optional. In case if you, by default, the application will get deployed into the master business group if you are not providing any business group into your Mule Maven plugin. Any question on Mule Maven plugin? So let me show how we can configure a Mule Maven plugin. Yeah.
Object store V2 also compulsory.
Object store
also compulsory.
that I'm showing. Yeah, that I will show. So let me open my application. I don't know where I stored my application. Let me find out. It should be somewhere. Not here.
And with trial version, we'll get US East 2 only. Won't get other region.
Yeah, generally you don't have to provide the
Reason also.
Where is my code? Yeah, it might be here somewhere. Yeah. So let me open up. I want to show you pom.xml. So I can open my GitHub. So in GitHub, I have like my code already checked into the GitHub. So this is a typical pom.xml looks like, and you have this plugin by default. Okay. So when you will create an application using Anypoint Studio, you will find that plugin already configured. But what you have to configure, you have to configure this particular parameters. So basically, I am saying a cloud of deployment. So basically, if I am running command mvn deploy, so how application will come to know where I have to get deployed? So this is the place where the application will come to know. So here I'm saying a cloud hub deployment. In cloud hub deployment, I'm passing the server. So server is nothing. Against this server, I will store my username and the password of the Anypoint platform. So let me show that. So generally, if I go to users, if I go to if I go to .m2, I will edit this file. So this is my username, the password which I stored in my settings.xml. This is the server name, okay, and this is my username and the password. Okay, we can store this in the setting. Then you have to give a workers. These are all variable. I will pass these parameters dynamically using that ambient deploy command. So I'm just setting this all as a variable. Then workers, worker type, then application name. I'm defining the region, then Mule version, $app.runtime, then environment. So these are some parameters we need to pass. Object store, we can pass it. We can pass one more parameter like object store version v2, true or false, but it's not always compulsory. If you are using the object store, in that case you can pass it, but my application is just simple, so I'm just avoiding it. So these are some few parameters which are the mandatory parameters which we need to pass it. Okay, any question before I move ahead? Yes, Dheeraj. Yeah, you are right. Yeah, Prasad, I have it. You can go through that also. That is fine. So Dheeraj, like, yeah, there is you are right, Dheeraj. So basically, you can use the connected app instead of passing the Anypoint platform username and the password. Yeah, you can definitely use the connected app connected app username and the connected app client ID in the client secret. Which parameters? These parameters are available in your pom.xml. Okay, so I will show you from where we have to pass these parameters. I will show that. Okay, currently I have declared those as a variable into your pom.xml. Okay, so let me move ahead. Now I will come to we always create a single pipeline, like we always create a freestyle project in Jenkins. But what is a multi-branch pipeline? Have anybody know the concept of multi-branch pipeline? So multi-branch pipeline is the concept of automatically create a Jenkins pipeline based on the Git branches. And it automatically discover new branches in the source control and automatically create the pipeline for that branch. What do you understand by this statement? Any answer for this?
Yeah, so Jitendra, what can be done, you know?
Yeah, Rajiv. Yeah, Rajiv.
Yeah, so what I was saying, like, you know, whenever there is any feature branch created, the developer can, you know, just commit those into the feature branch, and then, you know, then maybe the, you know, continuous integration pipeline would be activated, and then it will be deployed on, say, some staging environment. And later on, when, you know, everything is okay, then, you know, possibly it can be approved, and once it is approved, it can be merged into dev branch again. You know, it can be deployed on some UAT environment, and once, you know, it's UAT passed, then possibly it can be merged into master. So we have multiple branches within the Git where the application flows, and it can only be deployed on the feature branch. Later on, just, you know, maybe the zip files can be, you know, propagated to the next environment.
Okay.
That sort of.
Yeah, I think the concept is bit different. So let's consider. So it automatically discover the pipeline, automatically discover, like, let's consider I have a dev and main branch for your in the GitHub basically. Okay. So like what happened when I create a multi-branch, so it will automatically recognize there is a dev and main branch. It will start building both the branch. Let's consider in future I added a new branch. Okay. I added feature branch 1, 2, 3. So what will happen? This multi-branch pipeline will automatically that feature branch, and it will create the pipeline for that automatically, and it will start building for that. So you don't have to put the efforts for new branch. Basically, you don't have to put any efforts for for new branch to create a new pipeline. Basically, so basically multi-branch pipeline will automatically scan, like there is a new branch created. I have to create a pipeline for that. So it will automatically create a pipeline for that particular branch also, and it will start building that branch. So basically, what advantage we are getting? Let's consider I am a developer. I have a dev branch. As soon as I create a feature branch from my dev branch, the code with as soon as I created a feature branch, the code will automatically start building using that multi-branch pipeline. Okay, you don't have to do anything. Once you have configured the multi-branch, once you have configured the multi-branch pipeline, as soon as you create your branches, the code with the multi-branch will automatically create a pipeline, and it will start building the code and depend what you have written in your Jenkins file. So I will go through step-by-step approach. So don't worry, like you will get with the demonstration. So let me show first. I have a simple application which having two branches, main and the dev basically. Okay. So I have a two branches, main and the dev. So now what I have to create? So basically I will create a Jenkins file. What is a Jenkins file? Jenkins file is nothing. It's a text file which you have to define at the root of your project, which contain a step-by-step approach for deploying your application of a performing a various build for your application. Okay, let me show that. So this is my Jenkins file I kept at my root of my application. Let me open. So in Jenkins file, what I've done, this is just syntax. You have to write pipeline. You can put agent any, right? If you want to put agent as a cell, or if you want to put agent as the windows, if you can put that. But I will keep this as any. Here I'm declaring some environment variable. So basically, I'm saying my Mule runtime 4.0. I want to deploy my application on the development server with name multi-branch example dev. On production, I want to deploy the application with this name. For worker development, I want one worker. For worker type development, I want one micro. Same thing for prod. A region must be US East 1. The server, any point, basically. Okay, the server name. And the environment. So for, I have only one environment. So for deploying the production application and for deploying the dev application, I will use the same environment. Okay. So you can see that because in my AnyPoint platform, I have one environment, but it will ensure that the application is get deployed with the other names basically. So in your, like, in the real time, the environment will differ. Now you have to define the stages. So first stage, it's a build basically. Okay. So it's a build basically. In build, just I'm creating a MVN clean install. I'm just skipping the test cases for now. And the second stage, I'm just typing testing. This is the second stage. The third stage, what I'm saying, So deploy to development server. When there is a change in the development branch, basically, you just have to deploy to the development server. So this is one config file provider. So basically, it reading my anypoint credential. I will show that. So you need to configure this. I will send this Jenkins file. Okay, don't worry about that. So this is config file provider. So basically, whatever, like, you have to configure your username, the password for anypoint platform, right, into the Jenkins. So there is a plugin called a config file provider. You can use that. So you have to pass this file ID and you have to pass this Maven global setting. Then you can say mvn -g. This is just command. You have to just make sure you pass this command. Now the important thing, as I mentioned, mvn deploy -d mule deploy. So this is the command which you use to deploy the application. And if you see, I have declared some variable servers, like I declared some variable region. So this server variable, I'm putting the value for, again, like $server from here basically. So this value come from here, server anypoint, like that. Region, environment dev. So environment dev value is coming from here, like that, right? So somebody asked me how we store the value. This is how we pass the value to the variable. So these are the variables I declare in the pom.xml, right? So you have to prefix with -d. Okay, then you can define -d worker type. Then also you can define app runtime, app name. So these are the parameters, these are the variables, and these are the environment variable in this particular file. The same thing, what will happen now, whenever you are doing the changes in the main branch, it will deploy the application to the production server. Again, it will read the global variables, all the variables. I will show that. Then also same command, embed mvn deploy, but only the parameter will change, like application worker prod, worker type prod, like no application name prod. These are the things will get changed. Let me show you the config file provider. So basically, a config file.
Jitendra, I have a question.
Yeah.
So you have written deploy, right? So would deploy redeploy the application again? I mean, if it is already existing
Yes.
on server?
Yes, Rajiv. So Rajiv, ambient deploy command itself have a capability, like it will check whether application is exists, so it will redeploy it. If application doesn't exist, it will deploy the application.
Because I was getting error, when I use this deploy, and it was saying that application already exists. Then I have to put modify there in order to redeploy.
No, I don't think so. It works. So I can give this file after this call to everyone, so you can check this file. Okay. So it redeploy. It check application already exists. It will say redeploying, like that. It will say the messages. Okay.
Okay, maybe
So
I'm using, anypoint CLI I'm using. Maybe that it's not there.
Yeah. For anypoint CLI, it doesn't work. We have to give some data, some minus modify or some. You have to pass that.
Right.
For in anypoint CLI. Yeah. It works with Maven plugin. Okay. It works with Maven plugin.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So right now, I have a production environment which is empty. Okay. Before that, I want to show you a config manage provider. So there's a plugin called manage file. So basically, you can install that plugin. You can go to manage plugin and you can install that. Click on this. So basically, here I added you can add a new config. Okay. You can add a global Maven settings. So basically, if you see my Jenkins file, so what I'm using the Maven global settings. Okay. This is the standard command you need to use. But how can you get this file ID? That is the important thing, and what you are storing there. So basically, you can add this. You can simply say manage global settings. So I have already added this thing. So let me go back and I can simply say edit. Under that, I have defined my credential of anypoint platform under the server ID anypoint basically. Okay, and this is the ID I am getting from here basically, and the same ID I have copied in my Jenkins.x in my Jenkins file. If you can see, this is the same ID I copied in my Jenkins file basically. Okay, so what will happen? So basically, it will go to this particular file ID and it will search for this server basically. The server, what is the server? Where is the server? This is server. So -d server equals to anypoint. So where this value is getting from? Here basically, server anypoint. Against this server, it will go and search for the credentials. So basically, right? So So against this server, I have this anypoint. I store this anypoint credential, right? So this is required for deploying your application, basically, right? So I've stored this credential in this Jenkins. Even you can use the settings.xml also, so that is fine. But generally, this is the secure way. Like, you don't have to manage the settings.xml. You can use this config provider file plugin, basically. Okay, so that is simple. Now the next thing, you can go to a new item. We will start creating a multi-branch pipeline, and let me copy the code repository. So basically, you can copy this code from here. Okay, then I can say a multi-branch pipeline. So by default, you can see a multi-branch pipeline, and you can say Mule demo project. Okay, simple. Then you can say okay. It's very simple. Like, you don't have to do anything. It's very simple for creating multi-branch pipeline. I will show 2-3 techniques, so which are very important when you are creating. The first thing, you need to add a source. So my source is Git. Okay, I will give my repository path here, and you can add your credential either at this particular pipeline level, or you can add at the Jenkins level. If you add at the Jenkins level, the username and password will be pipelines. Or if you want to access Git in this project, you give this Mule demo project. But I have already added that. I will use my username and password. Okay. The next thing, yeah, I will use the Jenkins file. So basically, it will search for the Jenkins file at the root of your project. Basically, you can also say periodically, like every 5 minutes, something like that. You can set up the periodic also. Okay. So these are the settings you do have to do. As soon as you save that, it will start like scanning your pipeline. Okay, it will start scanning your pipeline, basically. Okay, so you just, it will say, like, just notice this logs, basically. So it got 2 branches. It automatically sends there is a 2 branches. Now it will create a pipeline for that. So you can see, like, it created the pipeline for dev and the main branch automatically. You don't have to do anything. Okay, so now if you see, for dev branch, so for dev branch, if you see, it start building the dev branch as well as the main. You see Jenkins file here. So what are the steps will be in the see? This stage build, it will perform for each and every pipeline. Test will be performed for each and every pipeline. This particular step will be performed for only dev branch. This particular step will only perform for the main branch. Okay, so let me keep eye on, like, pipeline. Hopefully it will work. Any question? I want to show some, like, we will go through some of the regular expressions and all those things. If you are redeploying the application, please check business group. Okay, it's not question. Okay, so it retrieve the server name, any point. Any question before, like, till the application on a dev server? Let me check main branch also. So what? So I will check the main branch also. I will click here. So I think main branch is deploying to the production server. Yeah, both are deploying. Let me check whether its application is deploying or not. Yeah, you can see there. It should have a, yeah, it prod, both are there. So both is getting deployed. I want to show.
Jiten,
Yeah.
yeah, Jitendra, one question here. So, I mean, it's doing parallelly, right? So if something
Yeah,
goes wrong, it will be going wrong in dev and prod both, right? So how to
Ashish,
detect? Mhm.
I will
How to
I will
detect?
tell you simple. I will tell you simple thing. In real scenario, this will never happen because you will not
Yeah,
going to commit the code into dev in the main branch at the same time, right, Ashish? You will never do,
exactly.
right?
Mhm.
So like it will never happen. So basically, what happens if you have a 3 branches? Okay, if you have commit happen in the dev branch, right? It will execute only dev branch. It will not going to deploy into a production and the other branches. In real scenario, it will
Exactly.
not happen, right? It's just a
Exactly.
demo. That's why, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's deploying. The application is getting deployed. I want to show you something else, So basically, this is a small example. I want to show the regular experiment. Like it will take 10 more minutes, so we will be finishing off. Yeah, sure, Anu, I will do that. So from where we find the Jenkins.xml, no, you have to create the Jenkins files. Basically, it's not Jenkins.xml, Prasad. It's a Jenkins file where you can define your step. I will email that after this, meetup. I will email that file to everyone, so you can refer that file for your future implementation. So that file needs to be present at the root of your folder. Here you can see like what are the different stages performed by particular line, basically pipeline. Apart from that, like if you go to main, in main if you see it will skip. In main it has skipped the deploy to development server because we have put the condition deploy to development server will only happen when we are doing the changing to the dev branches, basically. Yeah, application it should be successful now. Okay, so what I will do, so I I have to create one more branch basically. So I will go to my, it got deployed. I will go to dev branch. Under dev branch, what I will do, I will create one feature branch. So I can say feature, what is date today? 2/21/04/25. Okay. So I will create that branch. Okay. I have clicked for 2 times. That's why. That's why. So it's already pipeline is created. Now once, yeah, it's everything is successful. You can see that. If you can see, both branches is successful. So now I will just scan manually. Okay, because it wait for 5 minutes basically. So as soon as I will scan manually, so you can see the logs, it will automatically generate a pipeline for this feature branch also. Okay, and for dev it will do nothing because we haven't done any changes in dev and main branch, right? So this will clear your question. Basically it will not do anything for dev and dev and main branch. It will just met the criteria. It able to identify a new branch. You can see that. And if you go to this particular branch, you can see feature branch. Basically it is start building the feature branch. It automatically create a pipeline for that, right? So as soon as you add new branches, it will automatically create a pipeline for them, basically. Now there can be there should be one question, like in case if I don't want to build some some branches basically. What can I do, right? Yes, there might be chances like you don't have to build some kind of branches basically. How we can stop that, right? So let's consider if I added some branch called using test or something like that, with the name which start with test, and I don't want to build those kind of batches basically. I will show that. Let me complete this first. Here you can see, this particular branch has only check out the code, build and test it. It haven't performed these 2 steps, right? This is right? This is the correct behavior basically. And if you see, now what I will do, you have to do one change here. So basically we can write a regular expression. So let me do one thing. Let me open up. Okay. So now what I want to do, I don't want to build some kind of branches like, the branch which start with name test or branch which start with name some else, So I can write a regular expression. I can say main or pair, or I can get feature. I can say dot start. Anything which start with feature, then I can say, okay, that is enough. I just want to build main dev and anything which start with the feature branch. Okay, so let me copy this and I will go to configure. Now I have to go to multi-branch pipeline. You can go to configure. Under configure, there is something called discover branch. You can say filter by name with regular expression. So I can put, instead of dot star, currently it's saying everything. I can say I just want name, dev, and the feature branches. I can say save. Okay, so it will like every time you do the change, it will build like but it will not do any deployment now because it do for first time. Okay, that's fine. So it recognized the dev branch, it recognized main branch, it recognized the feature branch. Okay, that is fine. Let me go to Mule project. Okay, so now what I will do, I will try to create a branch with name test 221 04 25. So I don't want to create from feature, I want to create from dev. Test.
Jitin, one clarification.
Yeah.
Can we deploy on production based on approvals?
Yeah, that is the different plugin you have to use. You can do that. Okay, in Jenkins file you have to integrate. There's a plugin. I'm aware of that. So you can integrate that plugin, and in that plugin you can have a approval stage. Okay, you have to add the approval stage in your Jenkins file. You can do that basically. Okay. So now let me build it manually again, and it should not scan the test file. Okay, it should not scan a test. You can see that it should not scan a test because in filter we have put only 3 branches there. Main, if something starts with feature. So it haven't detected any something start with feature basically. The test. So this way. So it detected main, it detected feature, it detected dev, but it haven't detected test also, basically. So to Mule, it haven't detected the test because we have put a regular expression, right? So that is how you can. That is why you can implement a multi-branch pipeline for your MuleSoft project using Jenkins basically. Any question, anything like I have completed with my demonstration. I will send this Jenkins file across, after this meetup basically. Any question?
It has deployed on the server, right? Even the feature version is deployed on the server?
No, because if you see, feature version will not deploy on the server because in my Jenkins file, what rules I've set up, right? If you see, this is my Jenkins file, so it haven't deployed. Okay, it just simply like build it, test it, and it will not do the deployment. I can show that.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
if you see the picture here, it has skipped those stages. You can see it has skipped those stages, right? It just perform build and test. That's it. Okay. So let me take some questions. Suman, those scenario, like Suman, like in those scenario, the multi-branch will not work. Basically, if you want to, you can create a separate branch which can be scheduled on the Friday. Basically, you can create a separate branch for the production. Okay, you can create a Jenkins file. You can create a separate Jenkins file for deploying on the production, and you can schedule on the Friday, so that you can use the cron expressions, those kind of things. That is possible. So there is an option to give the cron expression. So you can use the cron expression like to deploy application only on Friday, basically, like that. Okay.
Jitendra, in that case, how do we know which branch is currently deployed on production or dev?
No, like that. In that case, I'm saying you have to create a totally separate. Can you please go on mute? Yeah. So in that case, you have to totally create a separate branch for the production. That will be like pointed to the production or main GitHub repository. Okay, master GitHub repository. Okay, so that is how you have to do it. Like in that case, like see if you are using this particular multi-branch, so it everything happen on the basis of checking, right? How you have done the code checking, what you are doing the merging, right? So depending on merging and checking, like this is the good question. Actually, there are a lot of customers who kept the production deployment separately. It might be manual or it may happen like once a week, something like that. So it's all together separate, basically separate pipeline with a separate Jenkins file, Rajiv.
Right. Thank you.
So Jenkins file, Mayur, you have to keep at the root of your project, basically in your endpoint studio. Okay, you have to keep at your root of your project. Okay. 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 I will give that Jenkins file to everyone. So I will on the videos for everyone. I have done for most of the people before. So can we on the video, everyone, like Ashish, Parmeswari, everyone can on the video. Yeah, Ashish, hi Rajiv. I can take some pictures. Rajiv, stop sharing also. Okay, I will quickly start with quiz basically. Can you see my screen again?
Yeah, now.
Okay. So before I start quiz, so I have some I would like everybody has to give the feedback, like what how where we can improve, what are the different topic we can use, in upcoming meetups, or also if anybody wants to become the speaker, they can reach me on Nitish, via email, via LinkedIn, so there are many ways, you can reach us basically. Okay. Okay, so should I start with first question? I will put a dash basically before I start. Sure, David. We will do that. So I'm just going with the first question. So question one is cache scope cache is only non-repeatable stream, true or false? will select some people.
Hey, Jitendra, you need any help?
Yeah, you can select 3 people, like top 3
Okay.
basically.
So what is the right answer?
Because Nitish is not well. He's got a COVID basic. You know that, right?
Oh, yes. That's why I asked you, right? You need help.
Yeah.
Answer is
So,
true, right?
Yeah, not true. So it's false, I think.
Yeah, it's false.
Okay. So yeah, first is David.
Yeah.
Then
Just a minute.
Tarun. Yeah. Then
Tarun. There are
Tarun.
2 Tarun. Can you give me full name of Tarun?
Tarun Rathore.
Tarun Rathore.
Yeah. And then Kishore
Yeah, 3 name is
Katragada.
enough. Sure.
Katragada.
Okay, I will
Okay.
write.
Yeah, let me repeat. Okay. So first one is David Tore.
Yeah.
Second one is Tanir Rathore. And third one is Kishore Katragada.
I'm just putting line again, okay?
Okay.
I just written K.
Hmm.
Katragada, I will write full name. Right? Okay. So I will go with second question. Okay. So dash is used to cache the entire response of a API. Okay. Answer is A, basically.
Okay. So Subrato Singh. Yeah. Subrato Singh, first one. Second one, Prasad Rawal.
Yeah.
And third one is Rakesh Reddy.
Okay.
Yeah, all 3 are different than the first 3. Okay.
I'll go with last question. Cache scope reduce. Response size, response code, request time, or response time? Okay. Answer is D.
D. Yeah. So first name is Srinivas Barla.
Srinivas Barla, right?
Yes. Then Sridharan Rajashekar.
Sridharan. Sridharan, right?
Yeah. And third one is Rajiv. Yeah.
Rajiv? Full?
Rajiv Mathur. Third one.
Oh, you got the 9.
Yes.
Okay, so I am going for so let me spin up. It's David Tore. So can you ping your email ID, David?
Congrats, David.
Okay. So David, congratulations. You can ping your email ID, so I can send you the voucher link.
Yeah. So I pinged you. Accenture.com.
Yeah. Second is Tarun Rathore.
Congrats, Tarun.
Tarun, you can ping me your email ID, okay? And third is Rajiv Mathur.
Yep.
Rajivji, congrats.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
all the 3 winners, like David, Rajiv, and the Tarun. If I can get all the email ID 3, I got Tarun.
I got the
Yeah, I
David
got.
one. Yeah, Rajiv. And do you want me to ping you?
I think
Or you
I
got?
copied it. No, I
Okay,
haven't
fine.
got it. Just a minute.
Yeah, anyway, I copied it. I'll give all three.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So guys, like you will be receiving the mail after this event, so you can just give a feedback. Okay? So yeah. So
Sure.
let's congratulations to all the winners. Like thanks for joining. So
Thank you, Jiten.
yeah, thank you so much. Or like also like I want like a few people can be a speaker in upcoming session, and we will definitely help them to to prepare the sessions and everything basically. So please research. Okay.
Sure, Jitendra. I'll reach out.
Thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
And
Thank you
Ashish,
all.
thanks for your help. And Parmeshwari, thanks for a great session. And Ashish, thank you so much for your help. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Jitendra, before you conclude, I would like to thank Parmeshwari because she has dared to, give the demonstration live. Because I have seen
Yeah,
people, having the flow ready-made and then just they justify that. But I
yeah.
really congratulate and, thumbs up to Parmeshwari that she has, given the live demonstration. So really clap for
Thank,
her.
Thank you
thanks,
very
Rajiv. Thanks for
much.
it. Thank you so much.
And
Thank
I
you.
thank Jitendra and Nitish for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no issue. And also, Rajiv, I think it was the Parmeshwari first session as a speaker, in this MuleSoft
Oh,
meetup.
wow.
Yeah,
More congratulations to her then.
yeah.
Really great.
So we want such people, come forward and like, they can speak up this at event. So it will
Right.
give us, it will increase their knowledge as well as the confidence, both, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.